Marist Sports Talk Network, episode 2 of the semester coming up. We got basketball, we got Fiday's Pro Day, we got an exclusive interview with Pat Fermo. Ryan's going to sit down with him, and then we're going to be talking the rest of spring sports here on MSTN.
Marist Sports Talk Network, let's go, let's go!
Well, you can tell everybody, yeah, you can tell everybody, go ahead and tell everybody. I'm the man, I'm the man, I'm the man. Yes, I am, yes, I am, yes, I am. I'm the man, I'm the man, I'm the man. Well, you can tell everybody. Yeah, you can tell everybody. Go ahead and tell everybody. I'm the man, I'm the man, I'm the man. Well, you can tell everybody. Yeah, you can tell everybody. Go ahead and tell everybody. I'm the man, I'm the man, I'm the man. Yes, I am, yes, I am.
How's it? Welcome back to the Marist Sports Talk Network. Dylan Arthur, Ryan Calvey here in studio. And Dylan, we got a great show today, but first let me ask you, how was your spring break, man?
Fantastic, Ryan. Went on a trip to Jamaica with the whole group of friends, supporting that Jamaican tan right now, and I love it. How was Florida?
Nice. Florida was good. The weather was great. But it's good to be back at Marist, and there's been a lot going on Marist sports-wise these past couple of weeks, especially we'll roll right into it. Before we left for break, the men's and women's basketball teams competed in the MAC championships in Springfield, Massachusetts. The men suffered a heartbreaking loss to Niagara. You want to talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, sure. You know what? The Marist men's basketball team started off that last game against Niagara in the MAC tournament, and they did not look good, Ryan. They were flat. They just couldn't seem to get anything going. They had a very tough time handling Antoine Mason. He was an animal, which you could see why he was one of the leading scorers in the country. But you know what? Things really started to click in that second half, and they really started to take off. You know what I mean? And they were able to battle back from an 18-point deficit and cut it to 2. Mm-hmm. If they had another minute, I think they could have done it. But eventually, time ran out, and a Khalid Hart three-pointer at the buzzer just wasn't enough, as it wasn't able to go in, bounced off, and they saw their season end right there. A little earlier than they wish they could have, but unfortunately, that's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, and you mentioned Khalid. I mean, he had an awesome season this year. He won MAC Rookie of the Year. And he had said, he put the personal accolades aside, and he said, winning the MAC Rookie of the Year was great, but I really wish, we would have went further in the MAC championships. And this was a team that was built to have success this season. They had senior leadership from Adam Kemp, Jay Bowie, and solid play out of Siobhan Lewis, who's a junior, so he'll be back next season. It was kind of a disappointing year for the men's basketball team, but this was the first year under Jeff Bauer, and you have to remember, these are not Bauer's recruits. This is still players from the Chuck Martin era. So, let me ask you, how would you grade this season? How do you think Jeff Bauer did in his first year as the head coach of the men's basketball team?
Well, Ryan, I find it interesting because you say it was a little bit disappointing of a season, and I have to agree with you, but at the same time, it was a season that was very encouraging for the Marist men's basketball program. And I think the reason it was so encouraging, they finished 6th in the MAC. That's the highest they've finished in quite some time. And, guys like Khalid Hart, you saw what they're going to bring to the table. Your Siobhan Lewis is returning, like you said. I think the reason that you had said it was disappointing, and the reason I agree with you, is because they had so much talent on this roster,
right,
with Bowie, with Kemp, you know what I mean? It was a team who, having watched them over the last couple of years, you really thought this was the year they were going to get over that hump.
Right.
They were going to get to the MAC semis. They were going to get to the MAC finals. Didn't quite work out that way, but I would still say overall this was a good year for them moving forward in terms of the overall general direction of the program and the way that it's headed. I'm excited to see what they can do next year. Like you said, Siobhan Lewis, TJ Curry, a lot of guys coming back, a lot of good players coming back. And they have 1 year under Bauer's system, so they know what he wants. They know what they're going to have to bring, and he's really putting his thumbprint on this entire program, which is good. So I'm excited to see what winds up happening in the future.
Yeah, and you mentioned, just talked about Jeff Bauer, but we'll transition now to the women's basketball team. And their head coach has been here for a long time and had a lot of success. And once again, the Marist Lady Red Foxes did win the MAC championship and moved on to the national tournament. Unfortunately, came up a little bit short against Iowa, but Brian Georges once again leads the Lady Foxes to victory. They win their 9th straight MAC championship, the 10th in the last 11 years. And, you feel sad for the seniors, Emma O'Connor, Casey Doolin, Leanne Ockenden, because we've seen them develop these last 4 years as seniors here at Marist College. And to come up short in Iowa in the first round, a little bit disappointing. But Dylan, we talked about it before the show. Really, there was nothing they could do. Iowa was just on their game, especially from the three-point line.
Absolutely, like you said, 8 out of 12 from three-point line in the second half. This team this year, once again, they win the MAC tournament. They played phenomenal in that game. They themselves faced some adversity in that game against Quinnipiac, where they battled down from, I believe it was 12 points, came back to win that game, to win their 9th straight, 10th overall. That's 10 out of 11. And like you said, Brian Georges, he's just a phenomenal coach. He is an elite coach. You can throw his name in there with some of the elite coaches in the country. Gino Auriemma, just throw it in there, because he time and time again has his team prepared to play. They're always sharp in March. They're always ready. They're always fired up. And speaking to the seniors, like you said, it's going to be sad to see them go. I mean, Leanne Ockenden, Emma O'Connor, Casey Doolin, some of the better players that have come through Marist in the past few years. And to have 3 really good, top-notch seniors is very rare for a program. But those girls have done phenomenal things for the program moving forward, and they've definitely stamped their mark on the program and in the program's history. So good for them, and just a phenomenal season. Like you said, it would have been nice to see them beat Iowa, but anytime a team shoots above 50% from three-point range and a half, it's going to be hard to manage a victory.
Yeah, you just tip your cap. And another senior that I think it's worth mentioning, she had an unbelievable year. She battled through so many injuries. Tori Giroux, a transfer from Lakeland, New York, transferred to Marist her sophomore season, had to sit out because of an injury, battled injuries this year, leg injuries, arm injuries, and she finally was able to get on the court, and she was a huge difference maker for this Red Foxes team this year. This was a team that coming into the season, we knew rebounding was going to be a struggle, and shot blocking was going to be a struggle, because they simply didn't have the height. Tori was able to step in when she was able to overcome her injuries, and she did a great job. And we saw her in the Iowa game; she was dominant. Grabbing boards. Even in the game against Quinnipiac, playing solid defense late in that game and helping the Lady Red Foxes get back in that game and ultimately win it. I think it's worth mentioning that Tori Giroux. I mean, we talk about Doolin, Ockenden, and O'Connor all the time, but Giroux also had a great season for the Red Foxes, and it's sad to see her go too.
Absolutely. I mean, she got the start against Iowa, and like you said, she played great. She was probably the biggest rebounding force for the Red Foxes in that game. So it was great to see her be able to make a solid impact after all those injuries she's had. So, good for all the seniors, and, would have liked to have seen them go with a victory, like I said before, but they played extremely hard. They put their heart and soul into that game, and you could clearly tell, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was a really good first half, to end the first half against a powerful team and a Big Ten team like Iowa, only down 8 points with a 38-30 score. You're really feeling good about yourselves.
Right.
But like I said, unfortunately, three-pointer after three-pointer after three-pointer after three-pointer falls in, and it's so tough to manage something like that, especially like I said earlier, when you're playing a Big Ten school like Iowa.
You tip your cap to them, and honestly, they hung around, and it was. I mean, they say it's a neutral site when these games are going, but that game took place in Iowa. So Marist really didn't have much of a fan base. That was clearly all Iowa. So like you said, Dylan, great job by them to even keep it close at half and try and battle. But you tip your cap to them. I mean, that was a good Iowa team, and unfortunately for the Red Foxes, their run is over. But Brian Georges is still the coach. They'll definitely be back next year.
Absolutely. He's going to miss these 3 seniors, but they do have some girls that look bright for the future. Sydney Coffey, she'll be a junior. She's going to be a huge impact player in the future. So I'm excited to see where both the men and women's programs go for the Red Foxes.
I am too. Well, we're about to take a quick break here on the Marist Sports Talk Network. When we come back, we'll be talking about defensive end for the Marist football team, Terrence Fidei, and his search to become an NFL superstar.
Welcome back to the Marist Sports Talk Network. Dylan Arthur, joined alongside by Ryan Calvi. And with the NFL draft just about a month away, the Marist football program held their first annual Pro Day. And much of the buzz was around senior defensive end Terrence Fede, who's received a lot of attention from pro scouts. Marist Sports Talk Network's Dan Cohen has the story.
Terrence Fede is larger than life on campus, but he is a monster in person. On March 13th, Marist football hosted its first pro day in program history. Fede talks about the experience.
The main highlight of it was, I just got to get on the field with my teammates. This is probably going to be the last time that we all get together on the field. It was just a pretty special moment, and I just take that and I cherish it.
The spring of Terrence's junior year, where the NFL came and they said they wanted to do a junior day with Terrence. In the history of Marist sports, there has never been a pro junior day. But they said they wanted to do a junior day with Terrence. They did a junior day. Then after that, basically every single day there was an NFL scout in the building.
Yeah, I would say my 40 because it was a little high when I ran it up in Buffalo, but when I got here, I ran a little bit faster.
The impact of having a possible NFL prospect on a program that's a FCS school that, at that, a smaller non-scholarship FCS school is huge. So now recruits look at your program and they think, well, I can go to Marist, and if I'm good enough, I can make the NFL.
The pro day also enabled a lot of guys who were maybe fringe guys to go ahead and get their name out there and open some eyes. And
it was great. I get to help my teammates, who helped win a championship, and we've been through this all. We haven't had 2 good seasons, but just bringing it back to Marist, being at the first pro day is something that we wanted to do. We've been making history all year. Why stop now?
When most of us graduate this spring, we'll be looking for our first real job. But Terrence Fede's next employer may just be the NFL. Reporting for MaristSTN, Dan Cohen.
Thanks a lot, Dan. So, Dylan, we saw a lot of the footage from the pro day right there in that package from Dan. But what we have been talking about, we watched Terrence this entire season when they won the championship, and he has gotten significantly bigger. The guy has just been an animal in the weight room, and he looks like he's NFL ready. He just looks in so much shape, and he looks like he's ready to go.
Absolutely. 6'5", 270 pounds. You see how fast he was on that 40-yard dash, Ryan? And you're right. He put a lot of weight on. He looked a lot bigger. And I know he's been training in the since the season ended. He's been trying to prepare himself to get a lot better at those events, at the 40-yard dash, at the shuttle, doing some combine training. But, man, he looks NFL ready, I'll tell you that right now. And that would be huge for the program.
Oh, absolutely. Huge for Marist. Teams that have expressed interest in Terrence have been the New York Giants, New York Jets, and Terrence will be the first Marist athlete since Rick Smits for the basketball team that would be a big name to compete, at a high level in a professional sports team. And it would be so exciting because we actually got to witness him play, and he's just an animal. And any team that gets him will certainly be happy. The guy's 6'5", 270. It's huge. So, I think he's NFL ready, and they're predicting him to go in, the 3rd round, 4th round, maybe even the 5th round. So, very exciting time around here, around campus.
Absolutely, and when you're being talked about possibly being drafted at all, you hear about undrafted free agents going on to be very successful pros. So the fact that his name's even be thrown into draft conversation looks really well for him. He could absolutely make a team, especially with his size, athleticism, speed. You combine all those factors together, and you're definitely looking at Terrence having a good shot of getting onto a roster and even contributing as a rookie.
And like you said, Dylan, it's huge for the program because now let's say Terrence does get drafted, or even if he doesn't get drafted, Marist's name is now out there for possible recruits who want to come in here, not even defensive players, but offensive players. The name Marist football, winning the championship this year, Terrence Fede possibly getting drafted. This is going to be huge for the program moving forward, especially when they're starting to gather recruits for the upcoming seasons.
No, most definitely. Players, they love to go on to the next level. So if they see that Marist players have been able to make that transition to the NFL, they're going to want to come here, and they're going to see the possibility of that happening for them.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with Terrence. We'll definitely keep it covered here on the Marist Sports Talk Network. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking about some lacrosse, and we will have a member of the Marist men's lacrosse team, Pat Fermo, in for an in-studio interview. Welcome back to the Marist Sports Talk Network. I'm joined in studio by Pat Fermo, number 43, senior attackman for the men's lacrosse team. Pat, how's it going?
Good. How's it going?
Doing well. So you guys so far this season, 3-6, 1-2 in the MAC. A little bit of a struggle for you. So how would you describe the season so far?
Like you said, I think the season can be defined in one word right now: struggle. Obviously, we're coming off last year's success, so people have high expectations for us this year. And right now, we just haven't lived up to them, to our full potential yet. So we're just gonna have to focus up on the remainder of the rest of the season and do everything we can to win every game we have left.
Yeah, it was tough for you guys, especially losing guys like Connor Rice, Jack Doherty. That's a ton of offensive production. But you have gained a lot of offensive production out of guys like Joe Radin, J.D. Ricoeur, Mike Begley, Drew Neesmith. What do you have to say about those guys this year?
I mean, those guys, like you said, they're doing outstanding. They're some of our main contributors on offense. Joe Radin, I think, is leading us in points. Today, actually, in practice, our coaches talked about how Mike Begley and Drew combined, I think, have 34 goals between the two. A large number, maybe not exactly 34, but, I mean, they're doing outstanding. They're doing a good job of working in the system that our coaches put in. They've done everything that they've asked of them.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And you mentioned the coaching staff. An interesting question for you. Mike Gongas is a new coach for you guys coming in, taking over the offense. Mm-hmm. So we'll get to him in a second. But Ethan Fox, who was your captain last year and you played with since your freshman year, is now a coach. What's that been like to have Ethan now as a coach when he was just your teammate last season? Has it been a tough transition for you?
It's definitely a little weird, but I wouldn't say it was a tough transition. Even when Ethan played with us as a captain his senior, junior, sophomore year, he was always very good at lacrosse first, friendship second. Not that, he wasn't your best friend, but he was just very professional. He took lacrosse very seriously. He knew that it was a job more than it was a sport to him. And so when he became our coach, it wasn't a tough transition of, taking everything he says seriously, doing whatever he asks you to. I mean, he's such a great leader and role model for all the guys on the team, especially the younger ones. So that's not that bad.
And what about Coach Gongas? How's he fit in coming in?
Coach Gongas is great. Like the rest of our coaching staff, he's very young, but he's very relatable to the majority of the team. He played in college, obviously. He had a lot of experience playing in different leagues around the country. So he knows what he's doing, and a lot of the guys on the team respect what he has to say and respect his knowledge of the game.
Now I'm going to ask you a kind of a tough question. Eddie Coombs, his legacy means a lot to this team. And, for those that don't know, Eddie was a member of the Marist men's lacrosse team, unfortunately passed away after his freshman season in a tragic car accident. And you guys talk a lot about playing for Eddie and winning for Eddie. You guys put his number on the scoreboard before every practice. Somebody represents Eddie wearing his jersey on game days. Does that legacy motivate you guys? Does Eddie's, his aura surround the team?
100%, absolutely. We always talk about how Eddie's in everything we do. We put his initials on our helmets, our jerseys, our pennies, even our practice gear. His locker in the locker room is plexiglassed off with a picture of him playing all of his equipment that he used to wear. So, you're constantly reminded of him every day. Coaches bring him up almost every day, before every game day speech, because a lot of what we pride ourselves on as a program is, making the Coombs family proud and playing as if Eddie was out there with us. So, he's with us every day, and he really motivates everything we do.
And you mentioned making the Coombs family proud. Obviously, team isn't doing as well as you guys were last year, but still time to turn it around. There's 4 games left, 1 game at home. This Saturday, traveling to Detroit. That's a big rival for you guys. So I'll ask you, what do you guys need to improve on? What do you need to do to get better?
Honestly, right now, I think, to put it simply, because there's always a lot you can improve on, I think on the defensive side of the ball, we need to get more organized. Not necessarily better, but just, simplify things, break it down into, figure out the nuts and bolts of how everything works, and really just get back to the basics of communication, because, we're putting up about almost 13 goals a game, maybe 13 and a half goals a game, which is good enough to win. We're just giving up too many goals a game. I think our goals against average right now is close to 14, 15, which is not good.
So you definitely look to score some more goals and maybe improve the defense moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
One last question. Dave Scarcello, the goaltender in net, hasn't had the season like he did last year. He struggled a little bit. What do you think is the reason behind that? Do you think that has to do with the defense in front of him, losing TJ McDermott, losing Ethan? Why has Dave struggled so much?
Losing all those starting defensemen definitely plays a factor. Not so much on a talent level because the talent's still there. The talent is still there. It's just with 3 new starting defensemen, it's tough for those guys to find chemistry between one another, and it takes them time to understand how a system actually should work. And sometimes it takes some guys to buy in to the system fully, especially some of the younger guys. A lot of people forget that our 3 starting defensemen last year, TJ, Ethan, and Pat Wall, played together for 3 years. Whether on the same line or not, they all understood each other, and they had a chemistry that just made them very tough to beat. They knew each other's weaknesses, their strengths, and played with one another truly as a defensive unit.
Wrong way.
All right. Well, thank you, Pat. Appreciate your time here on the Marist Sports Talk Network.
My pleasure.
And good luck moving forward. So you heard it here on the Marist Sports Talk Network. Senior Pat Firmo. When we come back, Dylan Arthur will join me in studio, and we'll wrap up the show. Stay tuned, folks.
Here at the Marist Sports Talk Network, we take our work very seriously, and that starts with the way we dress.
So Ryan, what do you think?
I don't know, Gary. I mean, my eye in this scene, it doesn't really look that good.
All right, you guys ready for the day? Casual Friday. Okay. Dylan, it's Thursday, man. Oh, crap. Just go home. Yeah.
Yeah, so back to the scene. I think Justin's got to edit out.
All right, that's what we'll do. All right, we'll just edit that later on. Okay.
Welcome back to the Marist Sports Talk Network. Ryan Calvi, joined alongside Dylan Arthur. And for the last segment of the show, with April Fool's Day coming up, we figured we'll do a little April Fool's segment. I'm going to ask Dylan a question, he's going to ask me a question, and we're going to respond with either fact or fool. So Dylan, I'll get right started, and I'll ask you about the softball team. They've done well this season, obviously winning the MAC championship last year. Fact or fool, will this team repeat and win another MAC championship this season?
Well, Ryan, I'm going to have to go with fact. I think they will repeat. I think Coach Asiano is going to have them playing their best softball when it matters most, and Captain Alyssa Zaka is going to help lead them to another championship. I say fact. I think they will win, and I think they will repeat as MAC champions. So, Ryan, another spring sport, the women's lacrosse. Now, they've started off 6-2, but they've yet to play a MAC game. That being said, when MAC play starts, will they impress, and will they go on to be the MAC champions this year?
Well, Dylan, I'm also going to have to say fact. I believe that this Marist women's lacrosse team is on a roll right now. Yes, they haven't played a MAC game, but they've been playing so well. Why wouldn't they have a shot at winning this MAC title? They're led by Jamie Romano this season, who scored an impressive 22 goals. Allison Gianta was just recently named the MAC Offensive Player of the Week in a 6-point effort that helped them win 12-7 over Binghamton. And in that same game, goalie Abby Witzak was named MAC Defensive Player of the Week. So they have the offense, they have the defense. I say fact that this team does win a MAC championship, or at least does compete for a MAC championship this season. Final question for you. The baseball team, Dylan, they've struggled this season. Mm-hmm. Fact or fool, they'll turn things around and they'll compete for a MAC title this year.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to go with fool on this one, Ryan. Baseball team 7-16, just 1-5 in the MAC this year. They have had some good contributions from guys like Steve Lorino. He's hitting .297 this year. Graham McIntyre is hitting .277. And Sean Keenan has a 2-0 record as a pitcher with just a 2.25 ERA. But unfortunately, I don't think they have it this year. 7-16, they've really seemed to struggle to generate consistent offense. So I'm going to have to go with fool. No, I think that this is going to be more of a rebuilding year for the Red Foxes.
All right, well, that about wraps things up here on the Marist Sports Talk Network for this edition. Stay tuned, as on our next episode, we'll definitely have Garen Marchetti and Justin D'Angelo on the set. Dylan, do you have any final words?
Tune in next time, but as for right now, this is all I have to say.
You're an animal. You're an animal. Have a good night, everybody. Marist Sports Talk Network.